Hello, hello. Magdalena here from my camper van. It's so funny sometimes I do these live videos and people ask me like, "Are you on a flight somewhere?" It does look like an airplane, doesn't it? Yeah, so on my camper van on my third month, and I am going to be on the road for like another month and a half. I'm in Vermont. Oh my gosh, for those of you guys who live in Vermont, I am so jealous. Like, it's just such a beautiful state, such amazing botany, amazing herbalism. The food is like standard of food is amazing. Just, no one talks about GMOs. GMOs is just a big no-no. I mean, we just have you guys have so good here, just the innovation of food. Every time I go to a farmer's market, it's just like gluten-free options are not a problem. You go to restaurants, almost everything is organic. There's no Whole Foods because there's just so many food co-ops. And so just fabulous. I'm loving Vermont so much. And but thank God I don't live here because I don't think I could stand the winters. You guys have 7 months of cold winters. I cannot do that. So I'm making the best out of the few months that I'm here, and I'm gonna be here for the change of seasons, and I'm gonna start my drive down to Colorado. So today we're gonna be talking about progesterone, and we've just released a new product, but regardless of whether you're using our product or whether you want to use something else, I am totally I'm totally supportive whatever you decide to do. The purpose of today's call is to really educate you on I forgot about the microphone actually to put that on. So hopefully that works. Can you guys confirm that you can hear me okay and the sound is decent? So yeah, so it's been quite a ride to put out a new product that's in a cream form. We're super proud of that, but I don't want to talk so much about the product. I want to really help you understand, like, when do you need progesterone, and when are you low, and when to stop, and when to put it in the different parts of your body, and all this kind of things to really understand and help you understand, how incredibly important and life-saving. Thank you. So it sounds like sound is good. How life-changing progesterone can be for a lot of women, and especially after 45. So the truth of the matter is that, in, let's say, conventional medicine, doctors see progesterone as being the reproductive hormone, right? So progesterone, right? Progestation is when you want to get pregnant, when you want to deliver a baby to full term, or carry a baby to a full term, then you need progesterone. And that is all correct. But there's a disconnect between what happens after that for women who are like 45 and above, and progesterone. And it's almost like conventional medicine. Like, there's really nothing for us in that space. In fact, if anything, the Women's Health Initiative that was prematurely stopped was using progestin in conjunction with estrogen, and that resulted in so many consequences of heart diseases, strokes, and death in women, and breast cancer. They stopped the study, and that generally has given a lot of doctors who are poorly educated on the topic the umbrella fear of everything hormones is a bad thing, and it's not. So really what I want to talk about today is progesterone being in the bioidentical form is something that a lot of women start feeling much better, much quicker. So how do you, so let's just first establish that even if you're not planning to get pregnant anymore, right, or have any more children, progesterone is going to help you sleep better, is going to help your mood stability, so not having any mood swings, and is going to normalize your cycle. So if your cycle is highly irregular, is very heavy, we're going to talk about all of those. It also helps tremendously with just staying and falling asleep. That's a huge one with progesterone. But it also helps with bone density. So estrogen, everybody talks about calcium. The truth is that you need calcium, magnesium, K2, vitamin D3, boron, and a lot of other things, but also hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen builds the scaffolding, and progesterone helps for the minerals to come and settle in. That helps out with bone health. Your HDL cholesterol, which is the good cholesterol that opposes the LDL cholesterol, HDL goes up when you're using bioidentical hormones. So there's a lot, specifically progesterone. It helps with bringing inflammation down. Women who have like histamine intolerance, mast cell activation issues, progesterone is the calming hormone for us. So there is no reason, if you're low on progesterone after your reproductive years, not to use it. So how do you know? So Jen, let's do a banner on like, how do you know if you're low on progesterone, right? And it's actually pretty straightforward. I kind of alluded to this. One of the first things you start noticing, and who here knows what I'm talking about? Like, ever since you turn maybe 40, for some women it's 45, 47, you suddenly feel like your sleep is just not the same anymore, right? Like, you used to be a good sleeper, and then suddenly now it's like you sleep, you just can't sleep properly, and you either can't fall asleep or you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you can't go back to sleep. And so then you start mitigating with all sorts of herbs and stuff, but it's just not the same. So if anyone here can relate to this, because certainly I have felt that in my personal life, how progesterone has, as my progesterone started dropping, it has impacted my sleep in a huge way. The other thing that a lot of women experience is mid-cycle spotting. So, instead of ovulating, your ovulation is not only not present, but is also like, you look at your panties and you go brown spotting, right? That could also be an indication. Women who are just generally chilled and composed and suddenly feel like you are a nervous wreck, right? And you worry about things that you never got worried about before, and your mood swings are out of control, and you suddenly find yourself to be really quiet. It's almost like a personality change when you just start feeling really bitchy, when as a person you're really kind and sweet, but something has really changed, right? And that can really be due to low progesterone levels. Women who obviously are entering menopause and perimenopause and having shorter luteal cycle. So that means from time of ovulation till your time of your period, instead of having like a full nice 2 weeks period, you're suddenly experiencing, it suddenly becomes 7 days or 10 days first, and then it's 7 days, right? And so your cycle is suddenly becoming now 21 days instead of being the full 28 days or 30 days. So that's very, very normal. And it is nothing wrong with it, because really you're not trying to stop your period from disappearing. I mean, when you enter menopause, it's just what we're trying to do is to let you slide into perimenopause, kind of like right through menopause and perimenopause in the best way possible. So, another one is obviously osteoporosis, osteopenia. So onset of osteoporosis, progesterone has been linked to low progesterone, has been also linked to that. So that could be a big indicator there. I would say those are like the big ones. Some of the other things that women experience is often in combination with estrogen dominance. So low progesterone is a form of estrogen dominance, and it oftentimes can go hand in hand with how the estrogen is metabolized, combined with estrogen being too high versus progesterone, right? So it's a combination of these two, and that can manifest in the form of a lot of period problems. So, for example, women who are suddenly having a super heavy periods, very irregular periods, super painful periods. Hot flashes can be either due to low estrogen levels or can be also due to low progesterone levels. So it could be one or the other. And we had some questions you guys emailed, and I'm gonna go over to the questions in a second. There was one of the questions was about hot flashes. So definitely progesterone can help, but you can also do other things like flaxseed to elevate your estrogen level and see whether that's going to help. Okay, so those are some of the symptoms. As we're going through, you guys post your questions and I will get to those in just a second. Mid-cycle bloating and pain, yeah, so that could definitely, Becky, that could be definitely one of the symptoms as well of progesterone issue. When to use bioidenticals, would it reflect on the corresponding lab test? So it should, absolutely. When to use it. So let's talk about that. When to use progesterone. So it depends on whether you're trying to emulate your full cycle and you are in your reproductive years and you're still trying to get pregnant, or are you looking at just feeling really good, right? So those are the two distinctly different applications. If you're in reproductive years, you're doing that, you're pretending like you're on progesterone levels. And so what you want to do is you want to start off right after your ovulation, and then you do progesterone until you get your period, so till your first day of your period. That's gonna be your luteal phase, and we're gonna be talking about dosages in just a second. And then if you are, someone like me who does not plan to get pregnant, I probably couldn't, even if I wanted to. I'm already in perimenopause. I want to just feel good. And so then if you're in perimenopause, menopause, even postmenopausal women, that's one of the common questions we get. You can absolutely use progesterone. And one of the, then you do progesterone for 25 days out of a cycle, and you take a break for 5 days. I'm still getting my period, so I take a break during the 5 days of my period, because that's when you want your body to give it a break. And then you start taking that after day 6 until the first day of your period again. So that's basically, the recommended way to go. Now, let's talk about dosages, and and maybe I'm going to talk about like progesterone versus progestin. Let's talk about progesterone versus oral progesterone. And so they have quite different applications. So one of the things about dosages is that, I'm always of the belief that you start slow and you build it from there. So slow and low, low and slow, right, is the way to go. And especially if you have sensitive constitution, yourself that, the recommended dose of whatever supplement or herb is X, and you always want, you always do a fraction of that because you respond to it in a huge way. Your body's very sensitive. Then you want to be respectful of that in your body, right? And so start off on the lowest dose. So for example, our Progest Pure Cream, the one that we just released, that's available in our store on wellena.com, it gives you 4 pumps. 4 pumps are going to be 25 milligrams of bioidentical progesterone, which by the way comes from yams, not from soy. And so, instead of doing 4 pumps, just do 1 pump that gives you a quarter of 25. So that's 12, like 6.5 milligrams, right? And that's what you start off with. If you feeling nothing, there's nothing, no adverse reactions, then you go up higher, do 2 pumps. That gives you 12.5, right? And then you go higher and higher until you do 25 milligrams. Is 25 milligrams enough? For some women, it's not. And so, it's not unusual to go even up to 75, 100 milligrams a day. Next year, we're going to release a stronger progesterone that gives you 50 milligrams instead of, what is the brand? So it's wellena.com. That's our brand. And if you just go to wellena.com, sorry, the light is kind of in your face. It's WELLENA.com. Jen, do you think you could post on Instagram just the whole website URL? Some people may not know about us yet. So so that's how you dose up. And if you're starting off with 25 milligrams and you're like, this is really not working, right? Like my sleep is still not great. It's okay. You can go up to, try even going up to 50 milligrams. So with our products, this would be like 8 pumps. Okay. So that's about dosage. How do you dose if you're no longer having a period? It's still the same thing. You still 25. Yeah. So you still use 25 day cycles. No, you don't do it every day. So you do it 25 days. If you don't have your period, you do 25 days. If you have your period and you are in perimenopause, like the way I am, it's going to be, you don't do it during your period. I've also found that my symptoms of low progesterone get worse when I am stressed out. So when I have stress or I'm in stressful situations. So give you an example. For instance, getting ready for this trip was actually a lot more stressful than what I thought initially it was going to be. And so what I ended up doing was like really, I didn't actually realize how much stress I had until I started the trip. And that's when I started getting horrendous hot flashes. And these hot flashes were, like waking me up. I have the Aura ring, right, that shows me my sleep pattern. And I looked at it, and like every half an hour I was waking up. And it was just, my sleep scores were terrible. I felt tired every time I woke up. And so I started correcting it with, using a lot of the different things that I know about. But one of the things I realized is that stress can also rob you of progesterone. And the way the mechanism works behind it is that the mother hormone that both progesterone and cortisol are produced from is called pregnenolone. And pregnenolone is like the mother hormone from which progesterone and then cortisol gets released. When in times of stress, whether it's emotional, physical stress, what happens is that majority of the pregnenolone we're gonna go towards cortisol to help you deal with stress and robs you that way of progesterone. And so, during when we talk about dosages, and let's say, you are at 25 milligrams and suddenly you're going through a stressful time and you're getting hot flashes, it's perfectly okay to be then increasing the dosage to, take it up slightly higher to maybe to 40, right? And if it's still not working, go take it up to 50 milligrams and see whether that helps you. So one other thing to let's discuss another, I think, really interesting topic, and that is, where do you apply progesterone on your body? Because that will make a difference how your body is absorbing progesterone, actually, right? So one of the ways of doing it is to look at where you have thin tissue, thin skin with no fat tissue on it. So that will be things like your wrists, right? So your wrists, front and back, your neck area here, your chest, which is actually really nice. I personally love putting our cream on our chest. I'll demo that in a second, because it's like, it's also addressing the little wrinkles that I'm getting on my chest. And then, and then your feet, right? Because you have no fat on your feet. Can be bottom of the feet, can be on top of the feet. Those are the great places. Now, the thinner, when you apply it on a thin skin places, the absorption of progesterone is very quick. Meaning, for example, you apply it before sleep, it's probably going to help you sleep pretty quickly when you're ready to sleep. By the way, progesterone doesn't make you fall asleep, right? It's not a sedative. It just facilitates it when your body is ready to sleep. Now, when you apply progesterone on fatty parts of the body, that's when you have the slow release action. And that's actually kind of cool, because, if you've taken maybe supplements before, they give you slow release actions, those ones that have like additional enteric coating inside, so that it just gives you these low dosages throughout, for example, the night. It will actually help you to sustain your sleep, instead of just helps you to fall asleep and then it wears off and you're like awake again. So I like to use that on the fatty parts, and that is that's gonna be your belly. It's gonna be the inner parts of your thighs. It could be your breast. By the way, a lot of women with fibrocystic breasts and a lumpy breast, right, would apply actually progesterone on their breast, having a lot of relief. And then you can also apply it on so belly, breast, inner thighs. I mean, those are the major places that is a really great application, and that gives you the slow release. Which one do you want? Well, it kind of depends on the application, and what are you dealing with? For example, let me give you an example. For me, I feel the best when I apply progesterone both on. So I actually started doing, because, for those of you who are coming a little bit late, I'm in a camper van. I've been living a camper van life for the past few months with my lovely 2 assistants, who you can probably see at the back there. They're just chilling out while mommy's working. And so it's been actually a lot more stressful than what I thought. There's a lot of benefits of doing it, and I'm having a lot of fun, and it's hugely educational. I'm getting everything that I was hoping to get from this trip, but there's also elements of unknown, of uncertainty, of running a business from the road, internet not working, and the list just goes on, right? My dog got skunked just 2 days ago, and he lost his vision. And so, I mean, those are just stressors that are far lesser at home. And so I've actually upped my progesterone to 50 milligrams. And so I do 25 milligrams on my, so let me just show you, on my chest and neck area. Some of it I'll do on the wrist, and then the rest I'll do it on my belly. Okay. So if you follow us for a while, we have an oil product. And so many of you have been asking us for cream. So we reformulated that we formulated, we formulated that to a cream form. And I'm really proud of it, because 2, 3, 4. So this is your 25 milligrams. You can see it's a beautiful cream. It really, it absorbs super quickly. So, one of the ways, of course, is doing it on your wrist. But I like to, it's super nice and smooth. It doesn't, like, it's not sticky. It's not, it will absorb in like literally in minutes. We've just released it, so you probably won't see many comments from anyone yet. But for those of you who are waiting for the product, I'm really curious. Just let us know what you think. We don't use any strong fragrances in it. There's just a tiny bit of essential oils. You can't even smell them, but it's more to kind of integrate all the other natural oils in it. Needless to say, if you follow us for a while, we always stand for super clean products. So we don't use things like perfumes, phthalates, mineral oils, like nothing synthetic. Even our preservative is a radish extract, just to make it super clean. And so, all of those things are just, it's just, you can really feel it. So that's about that. The other thing I want to talk about, which we got a lot of questions about, and I will jump into your questions in just a second. Let me just cover one more thing. There's some good questions coming in about chasteberry, so I'll get to this in a sec. One of the questions that we often get is about what's the difference between progesterone topical versus oral, right? And so the reason why, hello from Ontario, the reason why there's actually quite a big difference in the application. What oral progesterone is going to give you is, because it works on the GABA receptors in the brain, it gives you calmness and sleep pretty quickly. The challenge with oral that we find in a lot of practitioners who don't like using oral is that you are impacting the liver. So this is yet another substance the liver has to process and metabolize. And as we age, our liver is already taking a huge beating on a lot of different aspects and has to process so many different things. So why add another thing? But it's also that oral progesterone doesn't give you all these other benefits that I talked about. Doesn't help with hot flashes, doesn't help with bone health. There's no research showing that helps with HDL cholesterol. So there is, it doesn't really help. It doesn't help with histamine intolerance and just calming down the mast cells and histamine release. So there is that's the reason why we decided to go in a topical realm, just because it offers so many new dimensions as well. One other benefit I'll just mention, just in case you have somebody who's dealing with it, is TBI, traumatic brain injury. People, even for men, working with a skilled practitioner. I know a number of people who had TBI who started using progesterone, both men and women, and it has some amazing anti-inflammatory properties that calms down the brain inflammation for TBI patients. Okay, so let me just take a quick look. I've talked about benefits. We talked about the differences, topical versus this. So why don't we just go over to some questions? Jen, do you want to pop some questions, and I'm gonna scroll through Instagram and pick some questions we have a lot from Instagram coming in. Can I take folic acid to balance my progesterone? So first of all, you don't want to do folic acid. You want to do folate. Folic acid is synthetic and is actually pretty detrimental to your health. And there's no connection between folate and progesterone itself. So there's not really, there's no real interplay between those two. Do you have a cream for testosterone support too? No, not yet. And we probably will not release it because you need to work with, it's a good question. So questions for testosterone, topical, estrogen. I would recommend, if you decide to go that path, which is totally fine, work with a skilled practitioner who does irregular Dutch tests and monitors, because one of the things that happens is that testosterone gets converted to estrogen, and estrogen in excess could be problematic, leading to estrogen dominance, leading to cancers. And so even though they are bioidentical estrogens, you're still giving yourself a lot more estrogen, which is fine. It might help a lot of your symptoms. The question is, how are you metabolizing these estrogens? If you follow us for a while, if you have my books, my latest book called Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, that's available on Amazon, talks a lot about the estrogens get broken down to clean and dirty estrogens. And estrogen is not a bad thing. It's a wonderful hormone. But if you're breaking it down, and your liver is hugely responsible for that, if you're breaking it down to too many dirty estrogens, those metabolites are problematic. Those are the ones that cause a lot of estrogen dominance and estrogenic cancers. The estrogen dominance creates DNA damage on the cells, and that results in cancers like breast cancers, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, lung cancer in non-smokers, right? And so prostate cancer in men actually too. So you gotta be really cautious of that. That's the reason why, because I'm not in private practice, I'm not able to advise one-to-one. Most likely we're not gonna do testosterone and testosterone. So just be careful, but it's totally fine. I take 50 milligrams of oral progesterone. How do I replace it with topical? Rita is asking. So you basically, Rita, one thing I will do is do it very gradually and carefully and talk to your provider about that. Is I would do what I would suggest talk to him or her about is to wean yourself off oral and then start incorporating topical, and monitor your symptoms on whether do you need 50 milligrams of topical. Maybe you don't, because you're probably going to get higher absorption of the topical versus what you're getting from oral. I'm going to do a couple of questions from Instagram, because Instagram is super active and because some great ones coming in. Can chasteberry help increase progesterone? Absolutely, yes. Nurse Bina is asking. Absolutely can. The part of the reason why, let me also share that in Germany, for example, in German mainstream healthcare system, chasteberry, also known as Vitax, is actually the first go-to strategy to help women who are having infertility problems, miscarriages, right? It's like, imagine your regular doctor is putting you on an herb. I mean, there is so much of research and science behind it. So chasteberry is amazing. The reason why we are we've got some new products coming out, and actually I will tell you about this in just a few minutes. And the reason why we don't put chasteberry in none of our formulations is because I have found that quite a lot of people are having adverse reactions to it. So if chasteberry is helping you, fantastic. But if you're taking chasteberry and you're having things like, for example, I get throbbing in my ovaries. Women get mid-cycle spotting. Some women go like mentally, it just really messes them up. I've just had my girlfriend text me and say that her cycle went really quite manic. She went quite manic during her cycle, and then took out the chasteberry, that really helped her. So it's an herb, it's a powerful herb, and I think it's like with a lot of herbs, is something to be respectful of. So really great question. I'm always as an herbalist, I will always say do herbs first. And chasteberry is a fantastic one. The reason why we went with a cream is because I couldn't do chasteberry. There's a lot of, like, Dr. Stephanie, who's on our team, who's a naturopathic doctor, also cannot do chasteberry, funny enough. So it's actually a lot more common to have a challenge with chasteberry than it is acknowledged. Okay, let's see. Would this help with fibroids? So, Emanama Mahmoud is asking. Yeah, it's a great question. So fibroids are the result of estrogen dominance. And I highly recommend for you to get my book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance. There is a whole chapter on fibroids. There's a lot of other things you can do. It kind of depends on what kind of estrogen dominance you have. If the fibroids are growing because of estrogen being, there's too many dirty estrogens, then you need to correct that, which is basically changing your diet and adding some support for your liver. And all of that is in the book. If your estrogen dominance is happening because your estrogen to progesterone ratio is off, then adding progesterone is going to help the fibroids. So it really depends on what kind of estrogen dominance do you have. By the way, isn't it kind of funny that mommy has to work here so hard, and here we have someone like on the beach just chilling out. He's like paws up in the air, and he's having a really good time. By the way, like, it's so funny. My dogs know exactly when I'm working, and they have to be like, zip up. And then the minute I'll be like, okay, bye, hey, you guys, I'll say bye, right? They'll be like all perked up and like, okay, so what's next? Are we going for a walk? Like, what's going on? All right. Okay, so someone is asking, what's the difference between progesterone and estrogen? I'm going through menopause. So they're two totally different hormones, and both of them in menopause, as you're going through perimenopause, menopause, both of these hormones start declining. Estrogen has its own role. It's a little bit too much to talk about it on the call. If you're not familiar with my work, I highly recommend to get my latest book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, and I explain there in the book in a very simple terms of like, you can get on Amazon, on what the difference is. But one of the key things is that estrogen and progesterone need to be both at the right level. It can't be too much or too little. You have too little estrogen, you also, like, your memory starts going, your brain is not working the same way, your period is non-existent, right? Your memory is like, what did I walk, the menopausal ladies, you walk into a room going like, where did I leave the keys, right? That's the brain functions like they need to go. Our bones are becoming brittle, right? So that's all. A lot of it is based on low estrogen, just declining. Kim Butcher is asking, do you have evidence-based articles we can reference? Absolutely. So all of that is on our hormones with an S, hormonesbalance.com. Jen, is this something you were able to post on Instagram, the articles, the part 1 and part 2 on progesterone? Just nod or privately chat, do it in a private chat. Okay, so Jen is gonna post a link on Instagram, and yes, Kim. So all the articles are, all the things that I'm talking about are referenced there. How do you have to balance it with estrogen? So it's a great question. So actually, Katie is asking. It's a really great question. So, and somebody also asked a question about, how do you know? Let me just show this one. What are the symptoms of too much progesterone? So, so one of the things about hormones, right, is that you don't want to have too much or too little of anything, right? And whether it's cortisol, whether it's progesterone, whether it's estrogen, testosterone, it all has to be in the right kind of balance. And so, can you have too much? First of all, can you have too much progesterone? Yes. And people who are just overdosing, like they're just taking too much, they're put on too much oral progesterone, or just, like maybe you don't need 50 milligrams of the topical progesterone. How do you know? So really good question. The first one is you're actually going to start feeling quite sluggish and kind of like blah, and lazy and apathetic, and very unexcited about life and sleepy, actually. So it's kind of like you just slow down your system, but too much of a slowdown, and that's going to show up as having too much. Now, talk about progesterone to estrogen. Both the hormones, and in the articles, there's a chart, there's really good charts that shows this, that as we age, both estrogen and progesterone start dropping. So if you look at the woman who's 35 versus the woman who is like 65, our progesterone levels are like, they literally drop by 90%. However, progesterone drops by 90%, like from 35 to 65, right? Age woman, comparably. But estrogen only drops about 60-70%. So there is a big disparity between estrogen and progesterone in our menopausal years too. And that's the reason why bringing up those two, or one or the other, can really be a great idea. Now, does progesterone answer all the questions? Like, does it take all away all your symptoms? Well, if your estrogen is really, really low, then, when you're still having hot flashes and you are having memory issues and you're just not feeling like yourself, then, I think going the herbal way, I feel like it's a safer way as compared to going straight into estrogen as a hormone. Some of those estrogenic foods that are very well known is flaxseed. So flaxseed contains phytoestrogens, lignans that act as estrogens, and they're very gentle estrogens. They also they actually, I call them estrogenic adaptogens because they block the receptors in the cell that damaged the dirty estrogens from coming through, but they help to elevate the good estrogens. And so it's just such a wonderful, phenomenon in our biology and biochemistry in the body. And then there is a couple of herbs that are also estrogenic. So one of them is black cohosh. Another one is Angelica sinensis. So that would be dong quai. Red clover is another one that can be super helpful, right? And and many of them are classically also used for hot flashes because that's typically happens when your estrogen starts to go down. So it's a good question, Katie. We always want to balance things out between estrogen and progesterone as well. Okay, is the Dutch test the best way to know your progesterone estrogen ratio? Yeah, Kenny, that's a really good question. And the The thing with Dutch test, unfortunately, is that Dutch test does not do like a proper measurement. It just can't do proper measurement of the progesterone. They do an estimate only. And so that's not the best way to see it. There is another one that there are some saliva tests from two labs, ZRT, and the other one is Labrix. They do saliva testing, and that gives you a much better measurement of progesterone and a progesterone to estrogen ratio. I have personally found that, using progesterone during, well, I lost my train of thought. Using progesterone going more by the symptoms is actually much more helpful than just going by the labs. Okay, so let's see what else we have. Questions on estrogen. Using progesterone. What can women expect when using progesterone cream? Michelle is asking. Okay, so everything that maybe you didn't catch the first part of the video, that's okay. I can just repeat it. So actually, let me go to Hormones Balance, the URL that we have actually just shared with you guys. And this is actually, there's no need to show it. And I want to show you, give you actually a full list, because it's actually quite an impressive list of, and that every one of them is referencing a study behind it. So let me read you the symptoms of progesterone deficiency. So how do you know you're deficient? Hot flashes and night sweats, insomnia, midnight waking, infertility, menstrual problems, PMS and PMDD, anxiety and restlessness, irritability and nervousness, low mood and depression, especially around ovulation and pre-period, mood swings, weight gain and cellulite, especially around the thighs and buttocks, fluid retention, your fingers and toes swell up so you can't take your ring off, brain fog, sagging skin, low thyroid, pain and inflammation, osteoporosis, excessive menstruation, hypersensitivity, migraine headaches before cycles. That's a huge one, actually. Decreased libido, decreased HDL cholesterol. So if you flip that, it's actually, it's, so what we show in the article and the studies behind it is that it reduces hot flashes and night sweats, improves bone health and osteoporosis, even osteopenia and osteoporosis, reduction of PMS symptoms, restoration of healthy menstrual cycles, restoration of ovulation and healthy luteal phase. That's for women who want to get pregnant. Reduction of uterine fibroids and endometriosis, reduction of pelvic pain, improved libido, increased thyroid function, show to increase free thyroxine, the T4 hormone. Breast cancer prevention, we have a few studies on that. Improved fertility, ovulation, reduction of disappearance of breast lumps. Progesterone inhibits mast cell releasing histamine. So basically, your histamine intolerance might be reduced. Typically, that is not just progesterone. I feel like you've got to do a few other things. Histamine is pretty complex. Relief of pain in fibrocystic breast, deeper and more restful sleep, mood enhancement, anxiety relief, anti-inflammatory effect. I forgot about that. I actually wrote in the article, I used it post-surgery. I had a double hip replacement 5 years ago. I just had an anniversary. I don't like allopathic medicine, but that was one time in my life that I was very grateful to get my life back, quality of life back. And so I used it after surgery to lower inflammation, and I felt like really helped me a lot. Potential support with autoimmune and inflammatory diseases, improved brain health, supports recovery from TBI, so traumatic brain injury. Isn't that impressive? So this is where, so those are benefits of topical progesterone. From my own research and when I attend conferences, generally the progesterone, the oral progesterone shows only results in anxiety, reducing anxiety and helping to fall asleep, but not all these other things that I mentioned. So as you can see, this is pretty an amazing substance. Can it be used with estrogen? Lizette is asking. Absolutely, yes. So especially if estrogen is helping you, then continue doing that. It's not a one or the other. Remember, we need both hormones in order to feel good, right? So if estrogen is helping you and your doctor put you on it, totally. Okay, so let me just go to the bottom. if I'm over 50, 52, and I'm still getting menstruation because of a large fibroids, how often would you take progesterone? So I would use it the same way, 25 days out of a month, and on top of that, also do other protocols for fibroids, Tina. In my book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, there's a whole chapter on fibroids, including there are some enzymes, netotazine and serotepase enzymes that really help with tissue, fibroid tissue. And so that's something that, you might want to look into as well. It's mentioned in the book. There's a few things to do to correct that. Yeah. Okay, cool. So there's also some questions that we had that came in through our mailing list. And if you want to be on our mailing list and kind of know about these sort of things ahead of time, then just go to hormonesbalance.com, hormones with an S, hormonesbalance.com, and then you can get on our list. So Debbie's asking, I'm taking 150 trosh in AM and 150 PM, and my sleep is horrible. So Debbie, I don't know what's in your troch, and so you need to talk to your doctor. A lot of times troches, I see them being estrogen and testosterone, and do not contain progesterone. Traditionally, trained doctors, even OBGYNs, will say that once you are in perimenopause and menopause, you don't need progesterone. And it's true that you don't need progesterone to get pregnant, but you need to be sane and sound and have a good quality of life and sleep. And so, if your doctor is telling you that you don't need progesterone, then you need to find somebody else. And typically, functionally trained or holistic practitioners might be the way to go. Another question that we have is, so about the troches, I would just talk to your doctor about adding progesterone on a topical, especially if your sleep is horrible. I'm 45, I'm still have my period, my cycle between 20 and 21 days. Sometimes it will get my period every 21 days. Before my period, I'm experiencing hot flashes and sleeping issues along with headaches. Do you believe I need the cream? Possibly, but it could also be that your estrogen is really low. So we'll do one thing at a time. So if you decide to do the cream starting off slow and low, remember, right? And then if it's not helping, then add something that contains phytoestrogens, such as flaxseed, a couple of tablespoons of flaxseed, during the day. That will give you phytoestrogens. You can also play around with certain herbs like black cohosh, dong quai, red clover, just even having a red clover tea. Hey, you guys, my sister had terrible hot flashes, and she doesn't like to drink tea, so so she got herself red clover pills, so in a pill form, right? So it basically dry red clover, and she said literally within a week her hot flashes were gone. So, and that was because she just had low estrogen, and that was the cause of her night sweats. However, then she started having sleeping problems, so I sent her our progesterone, and then she started using the progesterone that's helping her sleep. So as you can see, hot flashes and sleeping issues are, one is the result of low estrogen, the other one is a result of low progesterone. So sometimes both of them need to be corrected in order to feel better. So this is a really important question from Michelle. My question is, can progesterone be applied topically, encourage the growth of some cancers? And that's a really, really important question. So first of all, the reason why the Women's Health Initiative was canceled was because women started developing breast cancer, and it wasn't progesterone in a form of yam-derived bioidentical progesterone, but it was derived from pregnant mares, so pregnant horses, and then it was done in a way that it's not, it was basically synthetic progesterone that did not fit the receptor of a woman's progesterone cell. And so we see this in functional world as being it's a completely different product, and that was causing issues. So so that's the first thing I just want to acknowledge, that the other thing to consider, and for liability reasons, I can only give you one answer, and that is, if you have progesterone receptor positive breast cancer, you might want to stay away from progesterone. Here's another thing to consider, and I'm not recommending it, I'm just saying it's something for you to consider and be educated about, is that progesterone and estrogen in natural forms is not a bad thing. It's what your body does with it, how it breaks it down, how it metabolizes it to clean and estrogen and dirty estrogens or progesterone is the difference. And so one thing also to know about breast cancer is that women who have progesterone receptor positive breast cancer, that progesterone receptor is activated and it's heightened its activity because of estrogen dominance in the first place. And so estrogen is the one that oversensitizes the progesterone receptor. So typically when women have progesterone receptor positive cancers is due to also overactive estrogen. So that's what needs to be corrected. Does this cause cancer? I mean, obviously we would not be selling this if it did. So you're going to be just cautious when you have a history of cancers. But remember, it's not that product that's going to, or any bioidentical hormone that's going to cause it. It's how your body breaks down estrogens or progesterone that makes a big difference. Is progesterone safe to start and stop at various points through perimenopause and after menopause? I go back and forth between herbs. So I'm in perimenopause now, and progesterone to quickly help my heavy bleeding, but I'm not sure if I would like to continue after menopause. Jennifer. So first of all, there is no, I personally don't like flip-flopping between things, and give it your body enough time for like at least 2 months to 3 months to do one thing at a time to see how you do. Typically what we recommend is that you use, for example, progesterone in this case, and see if it helps you. If it helps you and you stop and the symptoms don't come back, like your sleep is still amazing, you're feeling really calm, your fibroid is shrunk, right? Great, you can stay off it, right? But if if the symptoms do return, then your body is just telling you like, hey, I really need this. Between herbs and doing a topical directly, it's really your choice. And I would recommend, if you want, try. The only herb really that works on progesterone is Vitex. You can always try Vitex in the form of a tincture. Some tinctures are great, and wild yam can also support in progesterone production. You can try those herbs. If it agrees with you and it helps you mitigate your symptoms, great. Stay on those. Again, you can stop and see whether your symptoms return. If they do, you need to get back on them most likely. For me, like I was mentioning earlier, I can do Vitex. It gives me paradoxical reaction, and I see a lot of women having that, actually, not just me, but number of our team members, a lot of my colleagues and friends can't do Vitex either. Then I just go straight to cream. So that's how I would play this. So we get these occasional questions about paradoxical responses to progesterone, any form of topical progesterone, and whether it's things like having anxiety, developing certain sleep problems. There's somebody mentioning here, Lisa mentioning bloating, got horrible hair loss after using progesterone. So first thing you want to establish is making sure that using bioidentical progesterone and not progestin. Okay, so that's the first big differentiation. The second one is to really honor the fact that for some of us is just gonna be like take Vitex is a good example, right? I mean, Vitex is so amazing. Like I was mentioning earlier, in Germany they use it as a first go-to method to elevate progesterone levels in a woman. But I can't take it. Like my ovaries start throbbing, right? I get mid-cycle spotting, and it's like my cycle is all over the place. I don't feel like myself. It's not energetically an herb that agrees with me, and I need to honor that. So it's the same thing here. Maybe progesterone is not meant for you. The other thing is that some women have a very sensitive constitution. So remember how I was mentioning, instead of doing 4 pumps right away, which is 25 milligrams, right? You just start off with 1 pump, and that's all you start off with, right? And you put that, you use that and then build up to it and see what happens. What I have found from anecdotally by talking to my colleagues is a couple of other reasons why you might be having a reaction to progesterone. One is the presence of candida. So women who have candida issues tend to have I think I actually read that in one of the literatures. It was based on this doctor's clinical experience. Women who have a lot of problems with candida, there seems to be an interaction with progesterone. So that's a question for you, is do you have candida? And if you don't know what it is, just Google it and look at the symptoms, and maybe that's what you need to address first before doing progesterone, and it's going to help your overall health that way. The last reason why that could be an issue is that some women who have high cortisol levels and an overactive HPA axis, so like the so-called adrenal fatigue, but it's not just the adrenals, it's the whole HPA axis, could be reacting to progesterone too. So again, it's about really calming down your nervous system before using progesterone. So those are some of the reasons that you might need to do a little bit of more homework before figuring out like what is causing it. So there is Marina has written us about her doctor. So she's 59. She's been off bioidentical hormones for 5 years. Basically, her doctor, so between 50-55, also on progesterone 20 days a month, estrogen every day, and testosterone 2-3 times a week. Unfortunately, my current doctor didn't feel like I need to continue on hormones after 5 years of use. And today I can't sleep without the help of cannabis, valerian, and melatonin, and occasional romarin. I would love to sleep better if progesterone can help. Yeah. So first of all, I mean, when I read things like that, it's just like, wow, my blood pressure goes up immediately, because it just shows you maybe it's time for you to change your doctor. I'm sorry to say this, because if you are stopping hormones and remember, like, a lot of doctors put women on synthetic hormones and do it for 5 years window because that's safer, so that you don't come back and say, hey doc, I've been on this hormone for the past 7 years and now I've got breast cancer, right? So it's a liability for them. So they play with a 5-year window. You don't need to worry about that when you're on bioidentical hormones and you are measured and you're working with a practitioner, especially when you're doing estrogen and testosterone. Even a bioidentical, I highly recommend for you to be testing every 6 months to a year, and work with a practitioner who can really help you understand how estrogen is metabolized, because testosterone also gets converted to estrogen, and then estrogen gets broken down to that clean and dirty one. So that's really key to understand. And when just stopping hormones and then the patient develops these sort of symptoms like what you're describing, when we can't sleep, it's not just the sleep, it's like the entire rest of your day is completely, in your life is just completely upside down. I mean, who's ever here felt fantastic in a day after having a terrible night's sleep? No one is going to raise their hands just to say yay to that. So I would suggest change your doctor, because this doctor is probably very old-fashioned and uneducated. Work with a doctor who understands functional medicine and bioidentical hormones, and yes, and I would say you have absolute right to try progesterone, and I have a feeling like that's going to help you. What is the cause of hot flashes? Is it because of hormones being off balance? Absolutely, yes. And so I would love to actually start wrapping up this call, because I feel like I've been yapping for way too long. And so we have hot flashes, just super quick. I think I mentioned that earlier, is that hot flashes can happen either because our estrogen is low or because our estrogen to progesterone ratio is off. So to know which one is it, you can first start off with things like flaxseed, a couple of tablespoons of ground flaxseed a day, and see whether by raising your estrogens within a week or two, the hot flashes ease off. You can also do herbs like donquai, black cohosh, red clover, see whether that helps you. If it doesn't, that means that progesterone to estrogen ratio might be off, and then you can add progesterone and then see whether these hot flashes go away. So it depends on what the cause of the hot flashes is. And we have written extensively on hot flashes on our blog, on hormonesbalance.com, and there is we've also found that fluctuating blood sugar levels and overall inflammation can really play into hot flashes as well. So apart from hormones. All right, I'll do one more. I think we really covered all of that, Jen. Do we have any other questions that you want me to answer? Let's give it like 3 more minutes. Please remind us on how yams help our hormones. So yams directly, like if you watch Grace and Frankie, that series, right? Like if you watch that, and Frankie goes, the hippie Frankie goes into, like, she starts dating this yam guy farmer, and now the next thing you know, she's manufacturing her yam cream, right, for like women to lubricate things down there and to mitigate hot flashes, right? Well, that's let me just say, it's a total nonsense. It's like, it ain't gonna work. So yam still needs to be processed in the lab and be slightly altered in order to fit our receptor. So yams on their own are not going to give you the results. For people who say it helped them, that's total placebo. And remember, placebo is a very powerful tool. I could do another call just on that alone. All right. Any other questions? Good ones, Jen, that you think I should address? What's the best way to eat flaxseed? 2 tablespoons flaxseed, ground flaxseed a day. Is belly fat after menopause due to low estrogen? No, it's typically belly fat is due to insulin issues, blood sugar imbalances, insulin resistance. Our cells are not as receptive to sugar as they were when we were younger, and so the body starts depositing fat in the abdomen, and also liver inefficiency. I already talked about the herb to increase progesterone. That's Vitex. I'm estrogen dominant per testing and have been using cream for 5 months with minimal effects. So, Michelle, get my book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance. I talk about the 3 different types of estrogen dominance, but you really want to know about the 2. It's if the cream, I'm assuming that's progesterone cream, is not helping, it is because the estrogen dominance is a different type that you have. Actually, we have a newsletter coming out, I believe it's going to be next week, about the different types of estrogen dominance. And so the one that you're talking about is, I call it unbalanced partner. So the estrogen to progesterone ratio is unbalanced. But there's another type called ugly breakup. Ugly breakup is when you have estrogens being broken up to too many dirty ones. And so progesterone is not going to help you with that. What you need to then address is overall inflammation in the body and your liver health. So the book has a lot of recipes on how to address your liver health in order to achieve that. I'm estrogen dominance. Okay, so I've already covered that. I hope this is helpful, you guys. This is a really big one. Oh my gosh, I completely forgot to talk about that. Being 64 with a complete hysterectomy since 42, should I get on progesterone? So you guys, I mean, this is huge. Functional medicine does not talks after a full hysterectomy and even partial hysterectomy. Let me just say this first, that when the uterus is removed, the major blood supply to the ovaries gets removed as well. So the ovaries are going to die off sooner or later. And that's the tragic thing that doctors don't tell us. And so we're like, I have my ovaries, but I'm feeling like I'm a menopausal ladies because they're just not producing hormones as effectively because their major blood supply has just been removed, it's been cut off. So standard protocol in conventional medicine is just to put women on estrogen, right? And synthetic estrogen furthermore, which is tragic because you don't have the progesterone to oppose it. And the reason why they don't put us on progesterone is because they go, you don't have any uterus anymore. There's no need for, estrogen thickens the uterus wall and progesterone comes and kind of cuts it off. So it's a little bit like if you use the lawn analogy, I'm sitting here like I'm looking at all the beautiful lawn in Vermont. It's raining today, but it's so beautiful and green. That estrogen is what makes the lawn grow, right? And progesterone cuts in is the mower that cuts the grass down. So that's what happens in the uterus. So when they go, well, you don't have a uterus, so nothing is going to thicken. You don't need progesterone. I mean, it's such an incredibly myopic way of seeing things. It's painful to even read this in the literature. But the truth is, like, remember how I showed that progesterone helps you with sleep, with HDL cholesterol, with inflammation, with TBI, with your brain function, with anxiety, with mood swings. I mean, the list just goes on. So the answer is yes. Try progesterone, pure essential. Okay. I can't stop talking, can I? How much red clover do you just follow the instructions? It all depends on what are you using, tincture or pills or whatever. Just follow the instructions on the label. Hey, you guys, I know there's a lot of questions. I should be doing these lives more often because you got some great questions like how to regulate blood sugar balance. Katie, by the way, I talk about it in the book. So the book has got 3 foundational things that need to be fixed for hormonal foundation: gut health, sugar balance, and liver support. And so there's a whole big chapter on blood sugar balance. So do get the book. Progesterone pills for constipation? Not necessarily. That's not a major application. I take HRT. That's not bioidentical. Is that a bad thing? Do your own research. If I was me, I would not touch those. Very helpful. Okay, so thank you for your lovely comments. Okay, yeah. All right, so I think we should be good, Jen, huh? Session on libido. Okay, yeah, I should do that with my good friend Dr. Anna Kebeka, because she's the sex goddess, and she's got all the solutions for all the things sexy. I'm more like estrogen dominance kind of a girl, so get rid of the lumps and the boobs and all. All right, one more last thing before we go. I just want to tell you, you are one of the very few people who's going to hear about this. We are releasing a new product in October for the whole breast cancer awareness month, which I absolutely detest that title. I think it should be called breast health prevention and knowledge month. So we are actually creating that as a breast health month rather than just breast cancer awareness. I mean, are we not aware of breast cancer already as it is? And so the question is, how do we prevent it? What do we do to support our breast? And so the entire month of October, we're going to be talking about breast health. So if you've been having things like fibrocystic breast, lumpy breast, terrible breast pain that's debilitating, we are going to be covering a lot of topics in October, and it's also coinciding with the launch of our new product that's called Happy Sisters. So we're going to be, it's a supplement and a cream. So supplement is to address it internal, cream is there to external. So, you know, internal, external application at the same time. And I think we are gonna really make a big difference in the health space with this product. So so stay tuned for that. We'll be talking a little bit more about it in October. All right. Well, thanks everybody for being here. Thank you for your questions. I hope this is helpful and has given you some new ideas how to use progesterone. You know, if you want to support us, the product is on our website. If you have another brand that you rather use, that's totally great too. And you know, the most important thing is just take action and do something with your own health and be your own boss. All right. Thanks everyone. And we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.